So, we are here today on a beautiful Sunday. Hello, everybody, and welcome. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. My name is Kaids Alexandro, and today we are going to be talking to the one and only Lorna Abwonji. And she is a fashion creative from Nairobi. She has a wealth of experience over 13 years in the Kenyan fashion space. And today we'll just be talking about the importance of branding and telling your story in order to attract the customers you want and keep them and to grow your African fashion business. Welcome, Lorna.
Thank
And
you.
yeah, tell us a little bit about what you do, and yeah, we can start from there.
What I do a lot of things.
Tell us some of it.
I can't tell you all. Will be here all day, but I do. Let me stick majorly into fashion. But let me just mention the other things I do. I do discipleship. I'm very passionate about discipleship. For those who don't know what that is, it's basically helping Christians just know more about God. Most of the time, I do that with young people, but I've been in positions where I've done it even with older people. It's not about your age, it's about where you're at with your faith. So I'm passionate about that. I'm passionate about people. I think people go through a lot in terms of life, and sometimes they just don't have anyone to talk to or anything like that. So I like to be okay. I'm not everybody's friend. I'm not that kind of a person, but I like to see people. And I know there's this whole cancel culture going on, and everybody is toxic and everybody is gaslighting and all that. For me, I don't think I take people at face value. I would definitely try and reach out to someone beyond what they're showing on the surface. So that is in the way that I care about people. I also care about fashion, and not just the Kenyan fashion industry, but the African fashion industry. I had the privilege of being in a fellowship called the Mandela Washington Fellowship. That was an initiative of former president of the US, Barack Obama. It is because of Obama that I went to the US. Yay! But what I actually loved about the fellowship, it wasn't necessarily the fact, you know how the first time you go to the US, you think it will be about the US. For me, it was actually about the Africans I met, because you live in a continent where you think you will always interact with Africans from different countries. Yes, in Kenya, we're privileged. We'll meet a lot of East Africans, especially. But this was a time now, I met Africans from all over. I didn't even know where Cape Verde was until until we did the fellowship. So interacting with people from all sorts of countries really helped me, with the questions I asked, really helped me understand a bit more about probably how fashion works in other African countries. And every single person, including Nigerians, were telling me, oh, in Kenya, you're advanced. And I was like, are you sure? Because we don't feel in Kenya that we're advanced. We actually think the Nigerians are better off. I don't know which advanced they mean, but it's just interesting that every African always thinks the other African is doing better than them they're doing. So I learned in the US, I did learn about their systems, which is very different. In Africa, our fashion system tends to be more made to measure. The US, it seems to be more ready to wear. That's more popular. I've also had the privilege of visiting Germany, where most people were very impressed that I was a designer because they don't know any designers. But when you come here, everybody knows a designer, whether they are a designer for real or they've given themselves a title of a designer. I just think it becomes so interesting. And basically what I can say, what I've learned from my fashion experience over the years, it's good to expose yourself to other cultures, how the industry is, and not to assume that just because fashion works this way abroad, it will probably work the same here.
Agree.
So I studied fashion locally. I went to local colleges. I'm not a university graduate, which surprises a lot of people. I went to Evelyn's College. I started in Evelyn's College, and then I finished in Vera. It's a long story. I don't want to tarnish anyone's name, but um, for me, most of the things I learned, it's like I went through fashion school just to learn basically how to put garments together. But a lot of the things I do now, I have learned through personal research. YouTube has been a very good resource for
Tool.
me. Yeah. So I learn a lot from the internet, and Pinterest also has been amazing. And I make a point of getting into competitions. When I was younger, it was about winning. Now I've realized it's about growth, meeting other creatives. I really don't care if I win anymore. I've entered one recently. I think the one I've entered recently is one of the most intimidating ones I have entered, because the caliber of work in that competition is very high. I entered one. You'll probably see it in the next it's actually, yeah, March is starting tomorrow. You'll probably see it from March. Um, it's called Foundations Revealed. They do
Okay.
historical fashion.
Oh,
It's basically,
wow.
so
That's
I
something I'm
did,
so interested in too. Like, I like the historical. So, is it historical, African historical fashion or
no,
just
no, no, no.
worldwide?
That's actually what the why I entered. I was like, we need to start putting some African blood in this thing. They
Mm-hmm.
mostly even if you see most of the entries, you'll see it's mostly the 18th century, 19th century European fashion.
Mm.
But because the theme for this year was literature, and they said it can be any book of a character, I decided I'm going to do an African book.
So,
So
which book did you decide to do?
I did the River and the Source,
Okay.
and I did the character Akoko, because I loved
Mm.
that book in high school. Like me, I loved it. It was one of those books I actually read in a day. I couldn't believe it. A literature book. Anyway,
Yeah.
so I had to buy a copy. I had to research Akoko. And I also had to research Luo, what Luos wore or didn't wear.
Mm-hmm.
um, in traditionally, we were basically happily naked people before colonialists told us, yeah.
We were
So I had
naked.
to come up. We were naked. We were naked,
Yeah.
but we wore ornaments. So I had to come up with a
Right.
way of mixing, because the book gives a description, but I don't think the author really researched too much what we wore.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because people assume we all did loincloths and what. It's not true for every African tribe. For
True.
Luo's loincloths were when you got married. Before you got married, you didn't wear loincloths. You were Ivio. So
So,
yeah,
you mentioned something about the how in the your experience in the West, that
yeah,
nobody knew a designer, but when you're in
yeah,
Kenya, you're in Africa, you know, like at least you know at least two or three designers or
yeah,
people who are creating clothes. So
yeah.
I think it's important to have this distinction when we start
Mm-hmm,
talking about branding for African fashion creatives,
mm-hmm,
because when people think branding, they're thinking the big European brands, they're thinking Versace, they're thinking Prada.
mm-hmm,
But what we're talking about here is even in the small scale, even if you are a neighborhood fundi, a neighborhood tailor, you still
mm-hmm,
need to show your clients that one, you're serious about what you're doing, and two,
mm-hmm,
you need to differentiate yourself from another designer, because there are so many in our
mm-hmm,
space, in the African fashion space. So I think this is important. I think that's why this topic itself is very important,
mm-hmm.
to kind of have, you know, a brand to put forward for your clients.
Yeah.
So tell me about your branding story. Like, how did you get from being a design student to having your
Mm-hmm.
own brand, and what are the challenges that you encountered in that journey?
Um, I like that you said the word journey, because it's actually a journey. I think first of all, it starts with how we were taught fashion in school.
Mhm.
We the way I was educated, because the system has changed a bit now. I think right now they are trying to streamline it more with international standards. But at that time, it was more about the people who go to fashion school are those people who dropped out of school and you're doing the skill that will help you get a job. So the way you are taught is learn how to do everything so that you can survive in this country. Stitching, whatever it is you stitch, whatever picks up you. So we learned curtains, we learned pillows, we learned everything.
Right.
Like, so at the beginning when I graduated, I was doing almost everything. So it was more about making money. So you know how you make things, and of course, probably most of the things you make are nice. So everyone will tell you how nice it is. And once in a while you'll make a few sales. So you'll think, oh, since I sold that, that's probably what I need to do. Then at some point it dies down. So at the beginning, I basically just did, I thought I was just, because I started designing clothes when I was a teenager. I just used to draw them. I never understood the practicalities of putting them together at that time. I was just drawing anything. But when I went to school, is now when I learned how to put together an outfit. So my dream, because of course I watched all the shows, The Bold and the Beautiful and all the other things, I assumed people are just going to take what I have designed.
Right.
But the reality is people actually tell you, I have this fabric, I saw this thing on the internet, this is what I want.
Yeah.
So at the beginning, that's where I was stuck at the beginning. Really for me, I had entered a competition, my competition thing, and I entered a competition called Red. It was called the Red Africa Fashion Design Awards. I entered that in 2008. And when I entered it, I was with some very experienced designers, and they all had brand names, and I didn't have a brand name at the time. So the ideas I had come with were, I wasn't really thinking about the meaning of the name. I think I was just thinking a nice name that sounds nice. So I came up with so many funny names like House of Diva and what. And my dad is like my number one supporter. He basically rolled his eyes and was like, what is that? So he actually is the one who came up with I'm laughing at the thing you put. Anyway, he actually came up with Miamara creation. And Miamara means give me mine in Luo. And when I had it, I just knew that is the name. That name makes so much sense. I'm the one who added the creations at the end because at that time also I was just thinking I don't want to be limited to clothes. See, remember I learned how to make bed sheets and curtains and everything.
Right.
So I went with the Miamara creations. I did the competition. It was a very good experience. Because it was a very creative process. And the goodness of Reds is that we didn't make the clothes. We had to actually work with a tailor and explain to them what we're doing and let them stitch it. So it was also my first experience giving someone instructions on how I want my outfit made. So that was a bit of a learning experience. At least for me, I got along very well with the tailors. It was actually an institution that was training destitute girls how to stitch. So those are the girls we were working with. So after that, then again, I thought, you know how you think I've done this competition, I'm going to be this big designer. Nah, it doesn't happen like that. So at first they really tried to promote us. I did Samantha's bridal show. I did all sorts of things, but it didn't really pick up. So at some point I had to, I thought of trying to get into more fashion shows because when you're a designer and you're in school and the way the world looks outside, you always think doing a fashion show is what is going to propel you to the next stage.
Right.
So at that time, there was no fashion shows for upcoming designers. All the fashion shows were for people who had been in the industry for a long time. So in 2010, my sister was working for Samantha's Bridal, and she came across some information that the museum was celebrating 100 years. And because her boss started to do fashion shows and get sponsors, Lorna thought she could also do that. So I decided to try and pitch the idea to the museum for their 100-year celebration that they would allow upcoming designers to do a fashion show in their hall. So I did everything by faith. I didn't even have many sponsors. The museum maybe gave us their space for the photo shoot. I managed to get a lot of designers to participate. I didn't think about how much I was charging them because I thought that I'll get money from ticket sales.
Was
But
that a harsh reality check?
it was even more than harsh. If my dad hadn't bailed me out, I really don't know what would have happened. But funnily enough, the event was a huge success. What happened on that day was the road to the museum was being constructed, and the Chinese decided the day of the event is the day they're demolishing the gate. So we didn't even have signage to redirect people. So a lot of people came and
Wow.
turned away because they thought there is no event because there's no gate. But there was another gate, but a lot of people didn't know about it. So that's how we lost ticket sales. I went into a mini depression. My dad came through for me. But doing that event is actually what got me the opportunity to go to the US. So as much as it was such a dreadful thing at that time, just being daring enough to try and do something is what helped me get into the fellowship in the first place. And also, that is,
no, I would like
that is
to mention, because you have put forward two very important lessons that I would like to highlight there. Because one, the name you picked was a name that meant something to you, and was a name that meant something in, in the grand scheme of things in your language, right? So I think for designers who are looking to brand their the businesses, they need to be careful with the names they pick. Like the picture I put up there,
I
like
know.
that's a big name,
Biden,
but
the
we still
president.
don't know. We don't know what they're selling. I have no idea what they're selling.
Exactly. I'm actually going to come more into the name later because it's not even yet at the forefront of my story. It's not yet.
Okay.
That comes. I think that name thing actually comes back in 2019. Is not when I really started thinking about the name, but it's
Name.
because we were in a fashion incubator and we were actually made to think about our names. So anyway, after doing that event actually launched a lot of careers. A lot of the big names in fashion in Kenya actually started from my event. And also another thing that happened is after my event, the shows that were there at the time started giving opportunities to upcoming designers. They stopped freezing us. Because there's a lot of creativity. When people are young, you really don't even care what you're designing. As long as it looks fancy, you'll get a lot of media attention. Because we got cover in a lot of newspapers and magazines. So it really propelled. But because I was in debt, and my self-esteem was a bit broken, I got a job. So Myanmar was in the back burner for a bit. I worked in a bookshop for 3 months. Then I got another job in a fashion house called Kanga Culture, and I worked there for 2.5 years. So I was the manager. I was like the store manager. So my job was to manage tailors, manage clients, and just make sure the orders are done. So there I learned customer service. I learned working with tailors one-on-one. And I learned that tailors actually can teach you something. It doesn't matter that you've gone to fashion school. We had very experienced tailors who'd worked with all sorts of designers. So I learned a lot of things there. Then after that, now in 2013 is now when I fully went straight into now doing my brand, Myanmar. And of course, I went back to my old mistakes of just doing everything people want. And I think
I'm sorry. Keep going. Sorry.
I almost thought you were asking a question. So by 27, when was our last election? Was it 2016 or 2017?
I want to
I
say
think
2017.
2017, yes. So by then I realized there are so many people getting into the fashion industry, young people doing what I'm doing cheaper than me. How am I going to survive in the next couple of years? At the same time, I'm noticing a lot of the brands I grew up looking at when we were younger are closing down or changing something in their brands. So I had said this, I need to do something before I become irrelevant. And one of the things I learned in the fellowship, which I went to in 2016, is how to stay relevant throughout the years. So I knew I have to do something to stand out. I can't compete with people who've just come from college and I'm still doing what I'm doing. We're all doing the same thing, basically. So luckily for me, in 2019, I did a fashion incubator. We did it with Anne Macrae from Kikoromio, and it was funded by an ITC, International Trade Center. It was a 1-year process. And through that process, we learned now about brand. Because she started with a simple question of what do we think about when we think of Kikoromio? And I was like, what do people think about when they think about Miamara? And I started noticing a lot of people knew me for kangas. And I don't know why. I guess some of my earliest work was always with kanga. I've always liked kanga. And then I guess also working for kanga culture, there are people to this day who thought I was the owner of that business. But I realized a lot of people associate me with kanga, and I was like, I should explore some of my kanga designs back instead of the kitenge or ankara. And because a lot of people are using that to represent, I realized after meeting Nigerians that someone who is not in Africa wouldn't know the difference between ankara that's from Kenya and ankara that's from West Africa in terms of the fabric. And I wanted to use something that is East African, at least, even if it's not Kenyan. An East African fabric that is straight from here, that I won't struggle to get and I won't struggle to source, and that is unique and is limited edition print, and that if you see me with this top today and you want it, just know this print is not available anymore. So it has some exclusivity to it.
Right.
So when we went through the branding class, one of the things we were told to look at is check the name of your brand name, what it means in other countries. Because some people realize your brand, maybe if you're trying to sell, because it depends on the target customer. Maybe you're trying to sell it in this country and they can't pronounce it, or they pronounce it, but it means something totally different in their language. So we're told, apart from you thinking about the English version, think about what it means in another country, especially the ones you're targeting for to sell. And for me, I've realized most people think Miamara is my name. I have accepted it. I've been called Miss Mia very many times. So yeah. So for me, I think the name is perfect for me because my brand right now is so much more about celebrating African culture. I like that my name is from my tribe, and I like the meaning of the name. And because of the many years I've been in the industry, one of the main things that stands out for me is when I'm dressing, because most of the people I dress are women, there's a lot of self-esteem attached to what you wear. How you look really matters to you. So I've always encouraged people to come up with their own way of wearing clothes. You don't follow fashion trends. It seems like a good idea, but you realize not every trend is suitable for you. So for me, my tagline is usually create your own style. So I know some designers will disagree with me, but I accepted it long ago that we have secondhand clothes in this country, and I always believe that you can always mix stuff. You don't have to only buy Miamara or you only buy from one designer. Buy from all of us, mix it up, make something that works for you. Because this thing of what I don't like is a client coming to me with a design from another designer and telling me to make it instead of just supporting that designer. So that's why I'm like, create your own style. Come up, get pieces from all of us, get pieces even from Tumba, get from imported clothes, mix it up, have your own style identity. So if you're
Right.
coming to me and you wanted a specific kanga dress, then I can give you the kanga dress. But don't make me make what someone else is specializing in doing.
That's a very
Yeah,
good point you made, because then you're not a designer. If you're copying somebody else's design, then that makes you, uh, a tailor, or
yeah,
somebody who has removed themselves from the creative process.
yeah,
And this is a problem, and I think this is a big problem for people who are designers coming up. They don't want to say
yeah,
no to money, because you need to eat. Everybody needs to eat. You don't want to say no
I
to
know
money.
that.
So when a client comes to you with a picture, or from their phone, from a magazine,
Yeah,
and you're like, I can't say no. I need this money, and you end up making a name for yourself, but in the
yeah,
wrong way, and that's also
yeah,
takes away from your brand. It takes away from your
yeah.
branding process.
Mm,
So that is a very good point that you made.
yeah. And the flip side of creating your own collection, like the way I've created mine, is the way Kenyans react is, you've done such a good job. I have this fabric. I want you to make this and this for me. Something completely different from what you've already created. To
Mm,
some extent, it's flattering that they have acknowledged your skill, and to the other extent, it feels like you're just taking me back to exactly what I want to leave.
yeah.
I don't mind having the consultation with a client and coming up with
Mm,
something they want, but I don't like being boxed into trying to copy someone else, because I think it's a bit disrespectful, especially if it's a fellow designer that you know in Kenya. It's usually like very, very, very bad.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, as Myanmar, what
Mhm.
challenges have come? I know we've talked about like the branding side of it, right? So, when your clients, for example, like you said, they come to you with
Mhm.
somebody else's design, or they want you to do something completely different than what your
Mhm.
brand really represents, what is your answer to them? How can other tailors deal with that situation?
As I told you earlier, I like people, and I realize that sometimes people just don't understand what exactly your job is, and Kenya still has a long way in explaining for people
Mm,
um, basically what my job is. So I don't get offended. Like,
mm,
there's no need of getting offended. What I usually ask is, what exactly do you like about this outfit?
mm,
Because there's really nothing new. Like, an airline skirt is an airline skirt,
mhm,
you know. So if I know, okay, there's some specific designers that I can tell you have very specific things they do on clothes that makes it their signature style. So if you come to me and tell me you want a certain embroidery that a designer usually does on her clothes, that's why I draw the line and say, I can't do this. This is specific to this person's style. I will not do this. If you want an airline skirt, I'll give you an airline skirt, and maybe I'll suggest something uh, to accentuate that skirt if it even suits you. Because we start with, I don't think this will suit you, or this might not suit you. You might assume it looks nice on this person, but maybe it won't look nice on you. But there are people who are bold enough to tell you outrightly, I want you to do this. And that one I say no.
mm.
So it's always a process. Every client is different. I don't know. One of us is having streaming issues. Okay. I think it's okay. Okay.
Oh, you
Yeah.
have it? Okay.
No, my computer had given me a notice that there was an issue with the stream. So I don't know if it was my network that was almost acting up.
Sorry.
Anyway, so yeah, what was I saying? So I take it on case by case basis.
Okay.
The hardest clients to deal with are usually wedding parties. They
Mm,
are the ones who are usually the most adamant in what they want.
yeah.
And it's a very, very emotional sector, which
Mm-hmm.
is why I said I don't want it anymore. Because there's a lot of games with wedding. People who do wedding clothes, I think they are very brave, because one day the bride is going to come to you and you refuse one small thing, or they say something and they are the next person.
Right.
Because money is not really a problem when for weddings, because I guess they're raising money.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of games with wedding. I've made very few wedding stuff, but because I am about to launch my corset line, I would like to do the traditional weddings only. If you're doing a traditional wedding ceremony, that one I don't mind doing it, because what I like is that you don't really have much of a reference point. There are very few people who are making corsets for so you won't force me to go and make someone else's thing. And anyway, it's not wise. Corsets are too in the corset world, because now I'm in the corset world.
Mm-hmm.
I've realized they are too unique, and the world is so small with corsets. If you make anyone's identical corset, it's automatically noticed.
Yeah.
Because people who
And
love corsets are always looking at corsets, so
I'm
they
glad you
just
brought
have
up
to be unique.
your corset line, because that's a
Mhm.
specific sector of fashion. So speak to importance
Yeah.
of being specialized and
Mhm.
branding yourself as a specialized designer, not like one who does everything under the sun. So
Yeah.
are there any advantages of being a specialized designer as opposed to one who just does whatever the client wants?
Yes, actually, being in that incubator is what made me really think about it. Because remember, the main problem I had was I'm competing with people who've just finished college and we all look the same. And a
Mm,
Kenyan will be like, I've had comments of, you're so expensive, taenda tu kwa fundi wa Kibera. In
mhm.
English, I'll just go to a local tailor to make
Right.
for me the outfit. And then I also realized, because there are some certain designers in Kenya you think about and you know exactly what they do.
Mm-hmm.
Fine, they might make other things, but you know exactly what they do. So some of my favorite ones are like Patricia Lulumbella, who does beadwork. Yes, she makes clothes, but people know her for her beadwork.
Right.
Then there is Okake, who does bridal, and now she's very well known for her bridal collection.
Mm.
And who else? Okay, there are
John
Vivo.
Kaveke.
John Kaveke. I know him for menswear. I don't know how other people know him. I know him mostly for his menswear.
Yeah.
And yes, Vivo also came in and showed us that ready to wear can do well. And they are known for using their jersey fabric for everyday active wear. So I realized that when someone thinks about it, these are not the kind of people who will get clients who will bring them a design from someone else to
Mm-hmm.
copy. They will buy. So to answer your question, the importance of branding is, once you specialize, people will come to you specifically for what you're doing and for your talent.
Mm.
Yeah, more than bringing you other things. And more and more, I'm actually noticing that people are getting into specialization. For me, it was a whole journey because of that worry of money and just wanting to do things to get money, but it's not sustainable. That's the thing. It's not sustainable. You won't last very long, because there's always someone younger and cheaper who's going to come into the
Mm-hmm.
industry. And if you don't have a unique value proposition, you are going to die out, and you say fashion doesn't have money and I'm leaving.
Mm.
Yeah. So for me, I wanted to do corsets because first I love to challenge my skill. I like to upgrade my skill. And I've enjoyed making corsets so much. It's such an exciting thing. And I learned from YouTube. I didn't learn from anyone. I
Wow.
looked for schools online and I was like, it's so expensive. And also there is no one who's teaching corsetry. And I did so much binge watching on YouTube that now I can tell a fake corset and a real corset. I know all the terms and the names and everything. I think the only thing I don't know is the historical reference of, this is a Victorian corset and this is a
Right.
18th century corset. There are people who, I think that you need to go to school to do, because it's not my
Mm.
history. But
Mm-hmm.
that's not the reason I'm doing it. I'm doing it for the skill of accentuating our fashion to another level and making
That's
my clothes even better, to fit
mm.
better.
That's
Yeah.
commendable. And also, when you're specialized, like for example, corsets, and you're known to be the person to go to, you can charge anything.
Yeah,
and people will be willing to buy
exactly.
because you are doing one, something that's unique in the market nobody else is doing, and
Yeah,
two, you're good
mm,
at it and you're known to be good at it. So
yeah,
that's another point towards specialization and branding yourself as a
yeah,
specialized designer. Yeah.
yeah.
So you
And what
mentioned.
helps is there's a huge corset trend right now, so that's been a big bonus. But not to say that there's no one who does corsetry in Kenya. There are people who add corsetry into their clothes, especially with
Mm,
bridal
right.
warehouse, but they are not necessarily just making corsets on their own. So that's the
Mm-hmm.
big distinction. Yeah.
Right, right. And then your
I think
corsets
I'll
will
do a
have,
video about it.
and your corset will have African print on them, or they
All of
all.
them, not actually. Now that's another thing about African print. I will have some with African print, but I don't want to limit myself to the print. There are so many other
Mm,
things that are African that is not print. There
print.
also there'll be have beading. Then I want to learn basically African culture, draw inspiration from that,
Mm,
and then add it to my corsets, because being African doesn't necessarily mean African print, considering that the what we consider African print, some of them are not even African.
right.
Yeah, but I will definitely have some African print in quotes, corsets for for people. I'll have a mass market line, and then I'll have the specialized line. Don't worry, I'll have YouTube videos for all those.
I can't wait to see them.
Yeah,
I've told you I need to see more of your videos.
I have recorded so much content. Editing and uploading them has been what I haven't done.
It is a
Yeah,
challenge. I can relate with that,
yeah.
my sister. It's a
Because
challenge.
also recording takes a process for me. I have to stop. Oh, I need to record this part. Stop, record, go back, work. It can take a very, very long time. Yeah.
So, for the average tailor, the average student, the average fundi who's getting started in this journey, what's the process to start branding yourself? How do you start picking a name and registering that whole process? Could you walk us through that?
I think first of all, just find out what you're really good at, because I think where you get stuck is you think you need to do everything. What are you good at? Are you good at making suits? Are you good at making children's clothes? Are you good at doing commercial corporate stuff, making
Mm,
uniforms and all that? First, find out what you're good at or what you really enjoy doing, what will get you out of bed in the morning.
mm,
And once you figure out what you're good at, then it's easier for you to figure out a name for what you want to do. Because if you're going to have a more commercial brand, then your name has to sound appealing to people who are doing commercial. So once you've figured that out, you can come up with a name. I would suggest, okay, like the one you showed earlier for Joe Biden. I guess I don't think that's in the city. I think that looks like a picture in the country, and that actually works. I think as much as it's funny, if I went to wherever that place is and I said I want to go to the Joe Biden shop, everyone would know where it is. So it works. It works for where it is, because that's a
right.
country, that's a way they're to
But
stand out.
mm,
So maybe I don't. The only problem is I have no idea what they do.
right.
I
What are
don't know
they
what they
selling?
do, but
You
the
could be
building is Joe
potatoes.
Biden, the president, USA, Pentagon wing, half London, 2021 Kenya. Yeah, that's the main issue. So I think your name should definitely be able to give people an idea of what you do, and
Mm,
just have a strong identity. Um, I don't know if I would really advise people about, oh, it has to be easy to pronounce and it has to be, I think that's really on you, because there are, like, if you know the supermarket chain that has come to Kenya called Carrefour, me, I call it Carrefour, people call it
mhm.
Carrefour, some people call it Carrefour. It's pronounced in all sorts of ways.
Right.
And sometimes when you pronounce it differently, people don't even know which supermarket you're talking
We're talking
about.
about. Mhm.
So I think those are things you put in mind. We did a fun exercise in class where we were told to write our brand names. And because we were all new at that time, we didn't know each other's brands. And then you go
Mhm.
around and asking someone, when you see this, what do you think? and it was very good feedback when someone, because we were all designers, but someone is telling you, when I read this brand of yours, this is what I think you do.
Mm.
So it really makes you think about what it is. And I think also your logo matters. For me, my logo, I can tell you what inspired my logo. I actually drew the logo myself,
Oh, wow. You're
but I
woman of
wanted,
many talents.
um, I had another logo before, and it confused people so much. They didn't know what I was doing. They couldn't even read it. So during that class is when I changed my logo, because I realized there's an issue with this logo. And then we were advised, of course, on the font. I realized graphic designers know all these things, but we are always fighting with them. You know how when you're a creative and another creative tells you, no, you
Mm.
need to just use this font, and then you're arguing with them. No, it doesn't look fancy. We were told use
Right.
the common font because it's
Mm.
timeless. I never understood that until that. I'm like, actually, yeah, there are some people's logos you'd see and they look dated because the font is something people was using a long time ago. I'm like, I never
Mm.
thought my logo can look dated. You never
Mm.
think about it like that. But that's the beauty of actually being taught by someone who's been experienced in the industry.
Right.
Because when you're just amongst yourselves, you don't know any better, and you're not thinking about someone who's been in the industry like Anne Margaret for 20 years. There's a lot also she's also had to do with her branding that she had to change. She actually also changed a lot of her clothes. If you've noticed her collection lately for
Mm.
Kikoromio, she's doing a lot of more hand dyeing fabric. She stopped using the Ankara.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I think we lost Lorna. Lorna, can you hear me? Oh, I think we lost Lorna. Okay, so as maybe we'll give it another second. Let me see. Is she back? And Lorna, can you hear me?
Hi.
Hi. Hi. Okay. Sorry, I think we cut out for a second.
Yes, according to my computer, it was you who got lost. So I don't know. Because you're not posting this anyway, it's fine. I don't know where I had reached
You said
before I
Anne
was.
Macreath, she stopped using Ankara and she started doing
Yes,
hand
she
dye.
started doing her, because she said she had to go back and ask herself, why did I get into fashion?
Mm-hmm.
What am I passionate about? And what should I do for the next couple of years for Kikoromi? And she realized she loves art. She goes for art exhibitions. She's always interacting with artists and creatives and everything. So she said she wants her brand to be more about art. And one of the things she loves most is handmade fabrics, because it's an expression of art on fabric. So she left the Ankara print, and now she's fully on the handmade, so tie and dye batik kind of fabric. So if you see a lot of collection from 2019, that's basically what she's been doing. And actually, her brand has grown more internationally now than before, because now I even told her, now I see the clothes and I know it's Kikoromio. Like,
Mm-hmm.
no one has to tell me, oh, I don't know where that is from. You see it and you know.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I want my brand to be. I want that when someone sees, well, that's Myanmar.
Right. And
Yeah.
those
So
are
I think,
very good points that you bring up because she
yeah,
changed her whole business, the way she does her business when
yeah,
it wasn't working anymore. Some people will be stubborn and say,
yeah,
this is how it's supposed to be, and this is how I'm going to do it.
yeah,
Come rain, come sunshine. And you just keep going, and it's not working. So
yeah,
we're not don't be afraid of change. If you
yeah.
don't like your name, change it. If you don't like the way you're designing, change it. Grow,
Mhm.
evolve, and
Yeah,
that's how your brand will evolve too.
yeah,
So yeah, very good points there.
yeah, yeah. So for me, okay, so the thing I haven't mentioned is Myanmar Creations is mostly for this Kanga collection,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a more accessible work. I wanted to have something accessible for the common Mwananchi, because my biggest dream is to see Kenyans wearing made in Kenya everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
So I made the Kanga stuff more accessible. I don't know if I'll use another fabric. Right now I'm really enjoying using the Kanga. So we will see. But the corset line has a different name. It's called Cinched by Myanmar.
Ah.
And even the name itself already tells you
Tells you.
something to do with corsets and gowns and stuff. So I decided to I wanted to put them together, but I realized it could confuse people on what it's about. So I decided to do it separately. Right now, I'm treating it like a passion project
Mm,
because I don't want a lot of voices in my ear. I want to explore it. I told you I learned corsets through YouTube, so I'm not an expert yet. And I want by the time I launch it, it's a good product that if I charge people, they are not going to start saying that it's not up to par with international standards. But I have a lot of patterns. I'm experimenting with the patterns. I plan to make some for myself. I always make clothes for myself to know how it looks, feels, what I need to change before I give clients. And also for the Kanga collection, I actually stitched everything myself.
wow.
Everything. I didn't use a fundi. That was my COVID project. You know, in your home. That is what I was doing. I was stitching. It was exhausting, but I figured out stitching yourself means if the sleeve is too long, too short, this dress needs to be a bit wider, a bit smaller. I learned all those. So by the time now I'm outsourcing the labor,
You know everything.
I know even when
Mm,
they've made them like I nilishona nguo. I know.
mm.
I know where
Yeah.
you've gone wrong. I know you changed something. Yeah.
And
So
I love that you have two different labels for your
yeah,
products, and
yeah.
that promotes like the last point down here, like
Mhm.
consistency. So you're not confusing your clients. Like you said, you didn't want to confuse your clients. So you decided, I'm
Mhm.
going to start something different. I'm
Mhm.
passionate about corsets, but I don't want to confuse any of my other clients. I'm going to start something new. And that's
Yeah.
important when it comes to branding, is that your brand is consistent throughout. So Miyamara is consistently Kangas, consistently
Mhm.
accessible,
Mhm.
consistently, for the regular Mwananchi, and
Mhm.
is it cinched by Miyamara?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that one is more, fancy,
Mhm.
night nighttime
Artsy. Sorry.
ball
I,
gown.
my dream
Yes.
is to travel this continent because the theme of Cinched by Myanmar is actually celebrating beauty. And I had a discussion with my mentor and told them I'm really tired of the narrative of Africa and poverty
Mm,
and war and whatever. And one of the first things I did when I started, when I was exploring Cinched by Myanmar, was ask people what beauty is in their languages.
mm.
And everyone was shocked that they didn't really know what it means in the language because it always sounded like it means you are good. Like the word
Mm.
for beauty and good in most African languages, it's the same word.
Yeah.
For me, that just made me realize our culture actually values not just outer beauty but inner beauty.
Inner beauty.
Yes.
Yeah.
So the plan with the corset is I'm going to have all the corsets are going to be called beauty names according to the culture. So, example, if you're Swahili, the corset is going to be called Mzuri
Zuri.
or whatever word I want.
Mhm.
And it's just going to have phase one, phase two, phase three. But the inspiration is all going to be Swahili culture. So that by the time someone sees that corset, they know
This
that is
is
the
the
Swahili one. So the lower
mm,
one will be Jaber. So it will be Jaber one, Jaber like that. I just want them to have those names to celebrate
mhm,
beauty because
mm,
that's basically what it's about. So all of them will look different depending on the embellishments I put. Because I've learned example now, because the Luo one is one I've really researched. Despite the fact that we were not clothed, we had a lot of ornaments. The men actually had more ornaments than the women. They wore ostrich
interesting.
feathers. They had very
Wow.
flamboyant necklaces and everything. When their necklaces were more flamboyant, they actually, I didn't know we killed hippopotamuses for their teeth to make
Wow.
necklaces. So there is a lot of those kind of, I won't kill any hippopotamuses. So, but yeah, but I want to come up with my own version of things, and they will be modernized. They won't be so traditional that you feel like you're living in the past.
Mhm.
Corsetry is not necessarily African, but I'm using it because it's interesting enough for me to be able to add different aspects of it, and people would know this corset was made by an African, not someone in the West, because all their corsets look the same. Almost all of them look the same.
And that's the
So,
unique thing about African fashion, is that we are between tradition and modernity, right? So like we always want to be relevant in the world today. We want to be stylish. We want to look like every other person in Europe, in America, in South America, wherever, but also want to be rooted in our traditions. So for fashion designers, this is a very unique thing that's only in Africa. And
yes.
once we harness this and say, I want to bring some traditionality in my designs, then you have a whole new unique aspect of your designing process. So I love that you're trying to marry the traditional part of you and the modern part of you, and making some beautiful, beautiful things for people to wear and feel good and look good as well. That's amazing.
So if anyone knows anyone who's giving funds for projects, send them my way. I've been applying since last year. I've been self-funding, so it's been a bit slow. But my plan is to do a very artistic photo shoot. There's a makeup artist I work with. She's called Marilyn Wanjiru. Check out her work. Just if you go to Myanmar, anything makeup related, you'll see her name tag there. And she's very creative, self-taught. And I'm working with her, and I'm also working with another photographer. And the plan is actually to have an exhibition where it's going to be an exhibition, like an art exhibition. I don't want it to be a fashion show. I want it to be like an art, so that the photos are being celebrated, the makeup is being celebrated, and the corsets will be displayed in a very unique way. You'll have to come to the exhibition to see. And then no models, there'll be no people.
So you have them on mannequins?
No, I won't say anything.
We have to come and see.
Now, you have to come and see how it will be virtual now that everything is virtual.
So do you have a timeline for this exhibition?
If I get funding, it's easier. I can do it within a year. If I don't get funding, it will probably take longer, because what corsetry is, the materials are not available in Kenya. I have to import everything. I have to import things from China.
Oh wow.
And it has to be bulk, and I don't have the money to buy bulk.
And that's the problem. So the availability of material for many designers, that's a huge challenge. And it's a challenge in maintaining the brand consistency. It's a challenge to just run your business without being able to source your raw material. So it's great that you've pointed this out for the powers that be out there who may be watching.
Anyone who approaches and starts saying something about, you need to give us 100 of these, I always tell them, you've already lost me, because that's not possible. First of all, like Kanga, I use Kanga and it's locally available, but they are very strict in how many pieces they produce. And because Kenyan culture is, we don't like to look like everyone else. We like to be unique. So remember, I don't know if it's how we've always been, or the Mtumba push that more.
I think it's before, because I remember when I was little, there's a word called Kenya uniform. When you went and bought something that was made in Kenya, but when you Christmas, you feel like you're looking good. You go to church, everybody's wearing the same thing. So I think it comes from that
era. Like it. So that's why, unless it's something plain like what Vivo do, because you can style it in different ways. But in fact, I have clients who don't even want people to know that they get stuff from me, because they don't want people to know, oh, that's where she gets her things from, that's where I'm going. It's a very weird thing, but that's how we just accept. That's how Kenyans are.
I don't think it's just Kenyans. I think it's Africans in general. That's why people go to tailors. And one, it's because we have so many sizes, and it's hard to find something that's manufactured that fits African bodies. But second, we just like to be unique. We have our own sense of style. And I think that's why this profession won't go anywhere anytime soon. Like, I think custom made, bespoke clothing is here to stay in Africa. It's not going anywhere. And this is the prime opportunity to get in while the market is still warming up. You know, you don't want to come in when everybody has blown up yet. This is the time for tailors, for designers to start making the names for themselves and branding themselves so that they're known while the market is still young.
True.
Yeah. So, and I would like to commend you because I think as a person who's, you know, you're on still, like you said, you're on this branding journey, you've done such a great job of it because you already have a website that you update and you have your portfolio on there and you update it and you have online stores, right? You have your own online store.
Yeah.
Could you tell our viewers what your online store is called or where they can find it?
The online store is actually hosted by a marketplace called Africrea. Africrea it's basically a marketplace that was started by people from African descent, but they live in Europe, to sell things that are made here. They started in West Africa, then they recruited East African designers, and they are going to recruit from all over the continent. So I thought for me it was the right platform because the beauty of it started by Africans is that they understand that people are different sizes. So they allow the platform to do made to order. So you're actually advised to talk to you can interact on chat and discuss the measurements, and that actually make something that will fit them to avoid the returns and everything. So once I saw their policy and everything, and the fact that they took care of the shipping, they have a deal with DHL, and they've taken a contract that allows you to ship cheaper than if you did it on your own. So they really try to take care of all the small things that Africans are always dealing with in terms of trying to sell your clothes abroad. So when you spy on something enough and you're like, actually they have everything in check, then this is a good platform for me to try out. Doesn't mean it's easy, doesn't mean that I'm making 101 sales and all that. We are very many there, so standing out can be hard, but it's definitely a good platform. So the site is called Africrea, and you just look for the Myanmar Creations shop and you will find my work there.
And how about in Kenya? How do you market yourself? How do your customers find you when you're like your local customers? How do they find you?
Most recently, because of COVID now, it used to be word of mouth a lot, but now Instagram seems to be what works. For some reason, Kenyans, even if you tell them check my work on the website, they're like, can you send it to me on WhatsApp? So I have my WhatsApp business. It has my catalog. I can share the whole catalog. I just made my life easy. I have an investor till number. People don't take you seriously unless you have a till number. So I have a till number where people can pay, and I just chat to them on WhatsApp. I deliver with G4S.
Oh, okay.
I just prefer to work with people who are reputable. I don't want to just work with anyone. And if anyone really needs their clothes in a rush, because G4S is overnight. G4S and Wells Fargo is overnight. If you really need it in a hurry, you can use Uber. Have package delivery service. So I'd use Uber for parcels. So that's how I've been working. I tried to come up with all the policies just based on experience as a customer, because I'm also a customer for people, and also just feedback from what people have said.
So from what you've just told me, I can say your advice to up-and-coming designers and tailors is one, social media is very important, whether it's WhatsApp, whether it's Facebook, Instagram. Make sure you have a presence in either. It doesn't have to be all of them.
Actually,
at least one.
It actually has to be in all of them.
Yeah, I mean, to start.
You don't have to be active in everything. But like if someone Googled you on Twitter, it should be consistent with what they see. At least it will redirect them to where you're active.
Right.
So just have your branding in all the platforms, because you also don't want to be famous one day and then someone opens for you a Twitter account. Snaps your name. That's advice
Yeah.
I got from another program I did. I've done many programs. So they
That's a
just
good
said
advice.
have your name in all the important social media platforms. So you'll find me on LinkedIn. That's usually for me mostly my professional work. You'll find me on Twitter. I'm not an active Twitter person, but you will find the links to everything else. Instagram, I've become more active on Instagram and Facebook because now they are linked.
Mm-hmm.
So I do reels, I do IGTV, I do posts, I do all sorts of things. I make sure I respond to messages. That's also another
That's
thing. It's
important.
very important. Respond to messages, acknowledge people when they say something. I have YouTube as well.
You're
I opened
everywhere.
I opened my YouTube to give myself pressure to finish projects on time.
You know, the reason why I said at least one is because I
Yeah,
find people get overwhelmed when they have to do everything. You know,
it
I
is.
think you're more um, likely to keep up with one social media page than having five and not do any of it.
Uh, so,
So I advise people if you're starting, you can start with the one you're most active on. If it's Facebook, you're always on Facebook 24/7, start there. If you're Instagram 24/7, start there. But
actually, what
slowly,
dictates where you'll be is your clients. You think it's Facebook, but if your client interact with you mostly on Instagram, you'll probably find them more on Instagram. And
that's
if your
right.
client interact with you mostly on Facebook, you find them mostly on Facebook. Otherwise, you could
Mhm.
be on Facebook, but you're chatting with your friends.
That's a good point. And your friends,
So,
if they're not buying, they're wasting
yeah,
your time.
you're wasting your time. So, for me, I've learned actually your clients will dictate, which is why I'm kind of in all the platforms. At least I just make sure if anyone needs to find me, they'll find me here. But for locals, Kenyans, I always tell them, please just WhatsApp me. Like,
Mm-hmm.
WhatsApp is a whether it's personal or business, I'm on WhatsApp. It
Mm.
has to be on because of clients and general communication.
So do you have a personal and a business number?
Yes,
Okay. And do you
I learned.
advise people to have a personal and a business
Yes,
number?
I learned that the hard way. And also, when you're getting your M-Pesa uh, pay bill number or number, you have to have another number. That's not your number.
Ah,
Because they actually need, please register your businesses. That's another thing. Register, even if it's sole proprietor.
proprietorship. Yeah.
You will not get a till number without a registration. And I know people are avoiding KRA and everything
Mm-hmm.
because they want to make money without being noticed.
It's
But
just, yeah.
I've learned it's important to just have that. Separate how you get your money. Having another number for your business helps you know how much money you've actually made so that you're not mixing it with your personal money.
Personal. And
So have
also, it's also easier for you to get funding if you have a registered business name, a registered business presence, because
yeah,
then people know you are a legitimate business and
yeah,
not just
yes.
somebody claiming to be
They
a
all ask now. They ask.
mm,
In fact, I don't know the last time you checked, but even now, when you're trying to rent space from a mall or a shop, they even
mhm.
ask if you are tax compliant.
Wow.
Seriously, it's being
So
taken now.
that means the fashion industry is formalizing because before it was so
Every
informal.
every business, not just fashion, even now selling vegetables, you have to have a KRA pin.
Yeah, they're formalizing. So the faster you get
Yeah.
on board, the faster you do all this.
Yes.
So walk a tailor, walk a designer, a new student, walk them through the registration process. Where do they go to get registered?
Now it's easy. Everything is online. Just go to
Mm-hmm.
eCitizen. It's not that, in fact, it's not like you even have a choice. Immediately you turn 18 and get your ID.
Mm,
And I think also with COVID, I think the government have tried to put everything online. So almost everything you have to do it in eCitizen. You no longer do long lines on the pavement outside a
that's
government
awesome.
building. Yeah, so I think COVID has actually helped us get more streamlined services. So if you go to eCitizen, all the tabs there will direct you to where to go. Even the name search, you pay via M-Pesa. You don't have to leave even your house to do all those things. Everything is online. Because the first thing you need as a Kenyan citizen is a PIN. So once you get your PIN, after your ID, of course, because ID you get when you're still in school. But once you get your PIN certificate, then you will, when you're looking to register your business name, because that's the first search you do, you will type 3 options on the eCitizen platform where they register businesses, and then they will search. I don't know how long it takes now. Then they will probably email you and alert you that this is the name that's available. You pay for it, it gets registered, it's yours forever.
And how much
Then
does it cost?
it
How
doesn't
much?
cost a lot. I think, how much did I pay? I paid less than 1,000 shillings when I did it. I don't know how much it is now. I'm not trying to do the process again, but I don't think it's reached 1,000 shillings. When you're doing a company, if you want to register it as a company, the law recently changed that you can have a company as an individual. Before, you couldn't do that. It's actually the reason I registered as a sole proprietorship, because they wanted you to have a board to have a company, but now you don't have to.
Okay.
So you can register a company, but you need to know the responsibilities you will have. As a company, it's a lot more. If you can't afford it, my advice is start as a sole proprietor now. Make sure by the time you're registering as a company, you know what your brand is about. Don't get into being a company before, because you don't know if you survive the market.
Right.
Even if it takes 10 years, imagine just take 10 years to build your brand. There is no rush. This rush we have, it's just us who rush. But
yeah, and people think they're competing, but mostly you're supposed to compete with yourself, because you are the only one who has the vision that you have. Don't compete with other people. Don't think, oh, Marcy and Mary, they're doing this, so I have to rush because they're doing this. Do it at your own pace. Don't wear yourself out. Don't look at other people. Focus on what you're trying to do. And also, I would like to point out that the process Lorna has just pointed out is specific to Kenya, so it depends. Please research in the country of residence where you are. Every country is different. Go ahead and research and see how you can register a business in the different countries. But what she just pointed out is just for the Kenyan market.
Yeah.
Well, this has been an amazing conversation. We're coming up to an hour right now, so I don't want to keep you any longer. I think there needs to be a part 2. We'll see. I
guess
see
you'll wait for the comments.
I don't see. I'm sorry.
I guess we'll wait for the comments and questions.
Lucy Musyoka says I will check out Myanmar, and Ryan.
See one life.
And Ryan says, I love this channel so much. This is really interesting. I'm glad you're enjoying it, Ryan. We have to say goodbye, and I think we have to have you again, Lorna. This was such a fun conversation. I enjoyed it so much. Thank you for your time. And please go follow Lorna on her social media. Is it at Myanmar?
All of them, yeah.
All of them.
Plus, subscribe. Also has their own. Has its own.
Subscribe to her YouTube channel.
I do Instagram stories when I'm working. Actually, I post almost every process. So, okay, I'm not trying to make you not work, but if you follow my stories, I'm always posting my process. It's a way of pressuring myself to finish things on time. Yeah,
that's actually a very good tactic. You gotta do what you gotta do to get your products out there. So that's awesome. It keeps you what's the word I'm trying to look for? It keeps you
active. I don't know.
English is my second language. Si mudomo changu.
What were you going to say in Swahili?
It keeps you I'm blanking out. Okay, but this was so much fun, and I would love to have you again. Follow Lorna, subscribe to her channel, follow her on Twitter, all the social media handles. I will link them in the description box on my YouTube and in the Facebook Live also. And I can't end this without saying, of course, follow Kupsi. We have a goal of reaching 1,000 subscribers and 1,000 likes on Facebook. We are very close on Facebook. On YouTube, we need some more. So you guys, please go ahead and subscribe. And I thank you so much for joining us today. And I hope you have a wonderful evening or day wherever you are, and a wonderful week ahead. And see you. Thank you again, Lorna. It was such a
Bye.
pleasure.
Same. We're waiting for your brand story on Coopsy.
You know what? I would love to do that video. I've been thinking about it, and
I think you should.
I need to do it. And I think I need to do it where it all started, and that's in
Yeah.
Kenya. So I
Yeah.
think when I come to Kenya, you can
Okay.
sit down and ask me all these questions, and we'll have that conversation.
Good.
We can
Sawa.
reverse the roles.
Okay. Okay.
All right. You
Thank
have a
you.
lovely day. Thank you so
You
much,
too.
Lon.
Bye.
Bye bye.